upside to going 5-7 is that Alan Haller is not debasing himself in front of the media on why we should be in the field of 12. Instead, he's debasing himself in front of Graham Couch. As the page turns on football, Tom's teeing up a December to remember, and you're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the guy with the battery issues, Kevin Greck, and the guy with other issues, Alex Plum.
Hurtful? Because I crawl out of bed to record this in my bathrobe. That's neither here nor there, Michael.
Well, listeners and viewers, he just put the bathrobe on. Before that,
it was upsetting.
Is upsetting the word? It's upset. It was upsetting something. That's for sure.
I was upset. Let's be clear about
that. How are you both doing?
Great.
I'm rather enjoying this basketball team all of a sudden.
Yes. Yes.
What are we to do with that whole situation?
I will say,
pack it.
Plum, my mother said, is Alex skipping this week since the team shot nearly 100% from the free throw line?
Oh, Lyndon! Smart.
Our battery issues friend.
Oh, our battery issue is quite battery.
It's fine.
Out.
They don't get to see me on YouTube. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no
and
loss.
We're all the better for it.
Yes.
And nothing of value was lost.
Well, we, of course, want to thank everyone for listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share the pod with Spartans in your life. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Of course, like, follow, comment, whatever on YouTube, at Spartan_pod. That's where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. And if you're on Blue Sky, you can get us at Spartan Pod.
Come on, find us. That's where I am.
It's where I am. Why would we make all of that, consistent from platform to platform? We should definitely mix it up more. We should put maybe an underscore at the end. We should number these things like there are work passwords.
Well, unfortunately, Blue Sky does not allow the underscores, so that's why that happened.
Very good.
Clearly, someone wasn't thinking ahead.
Very good.
Foolish.
Love they did not anticipate that many users. We've got a packed show this week. Of course, it was National Signing Day. We're going to dispense of the term early since it's when most people sign. We've got that to go over. We've got some transfers out to cover. We've got Jonathan Smith's comments post-signing class that gave some insights into how he plans on developing the team moving forward. Two MSU basketball victories to break down, one over Minnesota, one over Nebraska. Women's basketball, we got to celebrate another victory, undefeated on the year. Hockey splits, number one MSU hockey splits against Wisconsin. And then we have a sit down with Graham Couch and Alan Haller to discuss before we, of course, take your listener questions. So, should be a good and lively show. And thank God we don't need to look at Greg to do it.
I hope.
MSU lands a class of 16 signed young boys. It is number.
We haven't gone to that joke well in a while.
Well,
all right.
because Kevin, it's been a long while since teenage boys cared about Michigan State.
Yeah, there's been so few teen boys to talk about that, we haven't had the opportunity.
And I believe you spent all of last episode negging one teen boy, so...
I have some guilt over that still.
I still don't.
I was looking... Kevin, he's not even... He's in the middle of the class. So... Anyway...
Yeah.
So yes, MSU's class is number 56 in the composite rankings. Not necessarily where you like to see it. It does come with 2 4-stars.
Yep.
And I'm going to need someone else to talk for a second.
Oh, it's not just me with the technical difficulties.
That is right.
Interesting.
It's me. I'm going to start taking off my robe, listeners, for those who are joining on YouTube. And the whole fucking thing is going to implode. I'm interested in this, Greg. Maybe you can walk me through this, because Jonathan Smith had a lot to say about 50-50. That's the magic. 50% high school recruits, 50% out of the portal. We signed 16 players. So are we looking to pull in another 16 theoretically in the next signing day? How else is this going to work?
Or another 16 out of the portal, I guess, which is where I thought you were going.
But we need to get to no, I'm sorry. The implication was 60. I remember Jonathan Smith or someone saying 65 or so is the number of turnover that we're dealing with year over year. I don't know if that's going to start to stem the tide, but if that's the case, to get to 65, we need to first get to 30 signed freshmen. And if we're at 16 on the early or first, or I don't know, the majority signing day, one gets a little nervous that 50-50 is actually a reasonable allocation of the next guys to next men up.
I'm with you on the nervousness. I thought it would be a little bit bigger than that, maybe like a 20 or a 22, maybe something. Certainly, I'm not expecting classic D'Antonio classes of like 28, and those guys are all here at the end of their run with MSU. I'm also definitely not expecting a like classic SEC class of 34, where 10 of those guys never even make it to campus, and it's not clear what happens to them. Maybe they cease to exist entirely. I'm with you, though, especially when you consider, Plum, the attrition that we're already beginning to see. Jalen Smith out. Basically, we don't have a wide receiver room anymore. Carter and Bogle to the NFL. Like, I expecting some degree of attrition, or I don't recall Plum him saying 60, but maybe that's right. That I'm with you. That means that we need to bring in a lot of transfer bodies just to have a football team on the field at the beginning of the season. So, Jonesy, I don't think that's covered, but have you seen that in the discourse, the conversation around this class, what the plan is? Like, in reality, are we likely to end up with just as many or more transfers when all of this is said and done?
Yeah, I think some folks are speculating it'll be somewhere between 20 and 30 transfers this year for Michigan State. And I'm realizing, actually, as we talk about the class, I said there are 16 commits or 16 signees. There's actually a 17th that's not listed, but he was a 2023. The name is escaping me. I'm going to pull it up because it's going to bug me that I don't have his name.
We're a very thorough podcast, so yeah, that's up to our standard. Very good. But he would never presume to not bring that name up.
He was a 2023 who'd committed to Oregon State, and then went on his Mormon mission, and then committed to Leonard Ayu. So out of Hawaii, and committed to Michigan State. So he's going to come in as a 2025 post mission. So that's actually, we're at 17 for whatever that's worth.
And folks. Coincidentally, coming back from his mission, Leonard is 25 years old. So that will be beneficial as well.
I mean, it does not hurt, actually, that we got 2 years of maturity on a kid. So, look, if you figure that you would be, the one reality of the difference between the college football that we grew up on and the reality of it now is that before you were taking flyers on some guys, and that, you had a built-in bust rate, so to speak, on guys who just didn't work out,
So you're telling me that none of these 16 guys are flyers or busts? Okay, perfect. UTEP beat UTEP. Not a bust.
That's not. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about sort of strategically moving forward, right? That the expectations around classes is probably that they will be probably a little bit smaller if you're being thoughtful about trying to catapult your program into the next level. Mm-hmm. That you're going to be trusting your evaluation, and that maybe, Kevin, maybe you hope that actually the hit rate on these guys being guys who stay in your program, because you got the right kind of guys and you only chose to recruit the right kind of guys out of high school.
Yeah.
Is the model moving forward. That's not to say that you're not chasing 4 and 5 stars, but like you're not necessarily as interested in dishing out for a high school recruit who may not pan out. And so you'd rather have someone who wants to be a Spartan and take a smaller class. And like, look, let's not, I think it's fair to say, because when I looked at the mood of sort of online Spartans around the time we recorded our last episode, I think everyone was rightfully apoplectic about the state of things. And then all of a sudden, Jace Clarizio, who had flipped from Michigan State to Alabama, comes back to Michigan State on signing day. Aiden West, who was getting a big push from Ohio State at the end, we hold them off and keep him signed. And everyone turned around and said, oh my God, everything's amazing. All is right in the world. More on that later when we talk about Alan Haller's and Jonathan Smith's, Alan Haller's sit down in Jonathan Smith's press conference. But this is an unacceptably low class, irrespective of like whether these are the right guys. And maybe you're comfortable with saying, like, I don't need to chase a 5-star class, because what you would say, Kevin, about a 5-star class is the same thing you'd say about this class, which is how many of them are going to be left around.
Yeah. What production are we going to get out of any of these guys?
Right. So, so if you recruited to a culture and a mindset, then you're hoping that those dudes are sticking around. And so before I move on to trashing this class, which I think is fair to do, it is worth pointing out there are a handful of dudes who are worth mentioning. Derek Simmons, a 6'3", 270 defensive line, probably interior defensive line, 4-star recruit.
From Frankenmuth, who, by the way, was in the Free Press today on why he went with Michigan State. And I read the article. It was a little cutesy, not very long. He wrote it himself, which I thought was good.
Wow,
of the free.
That's very cutesy.
Very cutesy.
They do that every once in a while. Yeah.
And he cites, I know I'm taking off your train of thought. Sorry, but
fine.
He cites Jonathan Smith's family approach. That was the language that he used, which is what convinced him to be happy and at home at Michigan State. So,
well, if you're from the land of Broners, what would you expect?
There you go. Very good. Well said. Couldn't have said it better.
But he's a national 247 player, Kevin.
Yeah.
Charles White, linebacker, also a 4-star from the state of Michigan. Aiden West, an 89 in the rankings, so a 3-star, but we're on, like, literally on the edge. Jace Clarizio, both Aiden West and Jace Clarizio, depending on your service, is a 4-star, but both are an 89 in the rankings, so on that border. And then one person who's just a little bit south of that is Braylon Collier, who plays at Perkins in Sandusky, Ohio. Just played for a state championship, is probably also a difference maker. Like, there's some talent here. And so if you told me that out of this class we got 4 difference makers, I think you'd be pretty pleased with that.
Would we? It's a whole class of football players. Would we be pleased with that? Just to put some perspective on this, when we get to the Alan Haller piece from Graham Couch, he's going to talk about in there our NIL support. We're going to talk about NIL in this episode. And in that, he cites specifically that he thinks we've got to be a top 33%, top third NIL collective.
In the Big Ten, he says.
In the Big Ten. So there are 18 teams in the Big Ten. That is worth pointing out because you've probably lost track at this point. Top third by my math, top 6. And if I look at the rankings of Big Ten classes, First off, none of the top 6 programs have any fewer than 20 commits. Nebraska is fewest at 20. Ohio State has 26. Michigan has 23. Penn State, who just lost the Big Ten championship game, 27 commits. So they still seem to think being above 20, all these programs is important. But none of those programs in the top 6, say for Nebraska, has fewer than 16 four-star pledges. Oregon, 16. Ohio State, 20. Penn State, 18. Oh, USC only has 11. I stand corrected. But it's going to be difficult, supremely difficult to compete in the top third of this conference, which apparently we have the NIL bandwidth to do, with a class like this in the long term. In fact, I would say it's going to be impossible to do that. You need the bodies to play in the games. And this class is meant to represent, even if it's half of a class, it's like 20% or 10 or 15% of all of the play potential during the next 5 years that these guys will be in school. So I just don't see how any of this nets out. I understand that the fan base is pleased that we were able to hold off Alabama and Ohio State for a couple of guys, but the net of everything is that this just is not a competitive class. It's as simple as that.
I'm not going to do this the whole night, but I'm going to start this way and not apologize for it. In Graham's article with Alan Haller, you may note that Alan doesn't actually say we have a top third collective.
Correct.
Graham asks, would you say it's a top third collective? And Alan's response is, it has to be. We'll get into the article later. But I was very uninspired and very unimpressed with almost all of Alan's substantive answers, or I should say all of Alan's answers to Graham's substantive questions. He did about as much non-answering as he possibly could have. And I don't know that Graham could have probed harder in these. I'm not sure the nature of it. We'll get into examples later, but this was a really striking example. That was a wonderful way of not answering that, leading everybody to assume that we had in fact said as much. So yeah, that's a problem.
Nope.
And I think bears out what you've just said.
That was one of the first things I flagged in that article. But it is noteworthy there, and more on this later. But Jonathan Smith clearly either got the call from confirmed listener Alan Haller or is indeed himself a confirmed listener, because finally mentions Spartan Nation NIL. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in his press conference as being responsible for this dog shit class.
All right.
There it is. Not pulling punches, folks.
Okay.
But all right. But Greg,
Alan True called it the sleeper class of the Big Ten. Thank you very much, Michael.
Well, but here's the thing. 2 things can be true at the same time. One is that we can agree that we expect better from this staff, and it can also be true that they might be good at evaluation. We don't know yet. We don't know yet. But so you could be shitting. We all could be shitting on this class big time, and we could see that there are a number of hits on this class that end up coming to fruition, and only time will tell. But more 4 stars equals better production, generally speaking, in this class is not it. So, but
we've got to go back and we've got to say again, for the record, it is a bit of a myth. There has been myth making about Mark D'Antonio took 2-star guys and turned them into multiple Big Ten championships. At that time, when Mark D'Antonio was winning at that level, he was recruiting in the top third of the Big Ten. And the other brands that you expect to see there were still there at that time. Your Penn States is, Ohio States is, your Nebraska's. But MSU was right there at the time that it was winning at a level that we expect this program to win at. And apparently it is resourced to win at, or Plum, as you pointed out, it's gotta be resourced to win at. And we're just not seeing it here by any metric. However you want to slice this thing, however you want to approach it.
Yep. Well, we'll see. I think we will have a better answer to that question about resourcing as the transfer portal window comes and goes. MSU desperately needs 3 to 4 offensive linemen, which are real coveted in the portal. They need an edge rusher, which is even more coveted in the portal. And then they need a running back and wide receiver support. Like, they've got bodies that they need on this roster, and how they're able to secure those will be, I think, telling as to where our collective is at. And you know what? Look, if they hit, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of the pickups they did in the portal this past year were actually good. They didn't miss on a ton of guys, and the ones that maybe you might say, well, I didn't see him play, were younger. Like, they deliberately backfilled classes. You know, I think about Jordan Turner, Luke Newman, who was an honorable mention Big Ten. I don't think any of us begrudge K'Ron Lynch-Adams for any of the running this year because the offensive line was not great. Jordan Turner was fantastic. Ed Woods was pretty decent. Like, there were dudes. Nikai Martinez was pretty good. Their evaluations were strong. Ben Roberts got more and more run in the center of the line on defense. So, I think we can look forward and at the transfer portal and figure out where we're really at from a collective standpoint. Because if, by all accounts, he doesn't seem like it in press conferences, but apparently Jonathan Smith does not like losing. So if you told me that there were some decisions made about what they expected to accomplish in their first year from a high school recruiting standpoint, and thought we might be better off reallocating our resources to the portal, I don't know that I'd be surprised by that calculus. You got to win now, right? Like, so anyway, we'll see. Not a great class. I don't think any of us are pleased. I think the people who were doing a parade because we held off 2 schools, I think that was pretty freaking misguided. This is a dog shit class, and we shouldn't be. Yep. Welcome to MSU. We're all happy you're here.
Not any of you individually. It's the collective of you. If you're listening,
and Greg is particularly pleased that you, Evan Young, have chosen to be a Spartan. So
Evan, listen. Let's tell you what I'll do. Evan, I'll make it up to you. Meet me at Big Ten Liquor. I'll get I'll buy for you. I'll do it one time. Whatever you want. You bring your
buy for him, then
cash.
He'll beat the shit out of you.
It's not about any of you guys individually. It's just frustrating because this tells me that we won't be competing. This is an indicator that we won't be competing meaningfully in the conference in the near future.
Again, that's right.
Yeah, and I think that's where the transfer portal will tell us a lot. And so, look, it's going to be a packed couple weeks for us to be chatting about. There's going to be a lot of movement off the team, on the team, and it'll be. Look, they've already. I think tomorrow. Yeah, we're recording Sunday evening. Tomorrow they have 2 massive visitors coming in. One offensive lineman, one running back from New Mexico State, who has a bajillion yards for this past year. Like, they're moving, and they're moving fast. So we'll see what happens. But I think we need to go talk about our favorite child by a lot. And that is, Tom Izzo, you are back in our good graces. Other than you still don't have a fucking center on your recruiting board. And I will not let that go. So, 2 victories. Minnesota, 90-72. And then a shellacking of Nebraska, 89-58. Which ties for the second largest margin of victory in Big Ten play for MSU. And frankly, that score betrays how bad of a beatdown that was. They were in the 30s well into the second half.
So Fred Hornberg said, and I don't want to rob us from a
Hoiberg.
little dialogue on Hoiberg around Minnesota. Actually, after that lossing, Fred's last name is whatever the fuck I say it is. So, but he said it was interesting. The game reminded him of MSU football of old, where we knew exactly what they were going to do, but we were
Nebraska
powerless.
football of old?
Yeah, Nebraska football of old. You knew what they were going to do, but you were powerless to stop them. And he said that's what it was like playing against Michigan State in this game. I mean, which I think says something. And if that can portend anything else, because at least Graham, and I only watched some of this game, Graham did not think that this is a bad Nebraska ball team this year. I don't know if that's true or not. Obviously, the stat line doesn't look great for them, but everyone has a bad couple of games here and there.
I would say that they're a lower tier type program. It seems like not like your Washingtons or your Minnesotas, which I don't know if you guys saw last night. Washington lost at home to USC by like $1 trillion as well.
USC is in their own right, maybe a bottom of the barrel.
Correct. Like things are bad at Washington right now, but yes. So I think you're looking at the statistics. That's kind of where they are, like a tier below the big bunch of teams in the Big Ten that are all potentially, I guess now at this point, competing for a championship. But Plum, continue. I apologize.
No, that was it. That was the point I wanted to make. I just wasn't sure how good Nebraska ball was this season, and I'm going to keep saying Nebraska ball.
Yeah, they're at least in the advanced stats their adjusted defensive efficiency was pretty good. Yeah, I think they were in the 40s or 50s. They were only, I think, 4 spots behind us on KenPom, and Torvik predicted this as a 6-point Michigan State win. And so obviously, by the analytics anyway, this is a blowout of pretty sizable proportions. In addition to the fact that it is in the record books realm for Michigan State in terms of its margin. If we can, I think, stepping back really quick to the Minnesota game, just a couple quick thoughts on that. This was, I'm not ready to say that Xavier Booker's totally come around, because at times he got manhandled in this game on effort related stuff, but the shots are starting to fall. He went 3 for 4 from behind the arc. And you like to see it. A couple blocks. Cohen Carr, leading scorer of the game with, I think, the most consequential series in this game. I believe it was a 10-ish point game when this happened, that Carr makes an insane block, or maybe didn't block, but just was so high up in the air he made the other dude piss down his leg. And then runs the floor for an alley-oop, hustles back on defense, then pokes the ball free on a steal and gets an and one on a layup, and indeed makes his free throw. So that was it was 5 points, but also, the robbing of the possession or 2 possessions for Minnesota. Just an incredible sequence that really blew the doors off on that game. And I think their whole crowd left at that point in time. It was
everyone just died there, and they just disappeared. They got blipped at that point. Ultimate, that's ultimate hustle stuff. Like that is a guy in Cohen Carr that doesn't have a shot, is pretty effective near the rim, but he's making plays in other elements of the game and pushing everyone forward. I mean, it's perfectly emblematic. When's the last time, guys, that we've seen this program, not this team, but this program, Michigan State basketball, solidly put away 2 overmatched conference opponents in a row like this?
100%. We would have guaranteed to fail one of them, or at least only win by 2.
Exactly.
I think you could even say that about some of the Cassius teams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've been playing down to opponents for the last
forever.
5 years. years, decade. I don't know what it is, but to go on the road, and again, I know that Minnesota is not a very formidable team, but to do it and then to come home and absolutely thrash Nebraska in a way that people didn't leave, man. People didn't. I was fortunate to be there. Thank you, listener Mike Jones, not just our liquor plug, but also ticket plug sometimes as well. I was fortunate to be there, and you would think 40-point blowout, people are like looking at their watch, what else can we do with our Saturday afternoon? Bro, everyone stuck around to see thunder dunks and defense and shot making and Nick Sanders and Garrick Norman coming in at the end. Like, it was a good time. Basketball can be fun, and I hope the guys saw that, appreciated that, internalized that.
Well,
go ahead, Mike.
I think the fun thing is something that I wanted to call out in particular about the Minnesota game, because that's a road environment, right? It's harder to have fun there. Mm-hmm. And in that game, the unselfishness of the team, I think they had 20 assists on 28 or 20 assists on 23 made baskets. Something stupid, like an insane assist to basket ratio.
I'm looking on it.
Yeah.
Looks like 25 assists to
29 made baskets.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. You will take that every day. They genuinely seem to be having fun playing together in a way that was certainly a departure from the last 4 years that we've experienced. And I guess as a Plum, I'm going to turn it over to you here in a second, and just as a thread to take from the Minnesota game that I wrote this at the time, and move it to the Nebraska game. Jackson Kohler, who used to be a black hole of when the ball hit him in the post, you knew he was going to put a shot up for good or bad. And he has increasingly been getting better at passing out of the post and hitting dudes for open shots. He's gotten better at I've never seen him do it. He's dishing from one big to another in the paint in really effective ways, and ends the game with a double-double, 11 points, 11 rebounds, like just monster hustle. And that ability to pass, people are going to have a real hard time doubling him, which they've been doing consistently. Even when he was not good, they doubled him because they knew he was a black hole. And so if he can continue to master that craft, like, stocks rising for Jackson Kohler. Plum.
Well, the last thing I'll just say maybe quickly is I was very impressed with above 50% shooting from the field in 2 successive games. One where we shot, 50% for 3 on the road is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I didn't think they had the capacity for that. So just wanted to doff my cap there. And of course, as your esteemed mother pointed out, going 22 for 23 behind the charity stripe against Nebraska at home is and will always be the bare minimum that must be required.
I was going to say, what about that last one, Alex?
By any player. And
it was so late in the game.
Zapala
Simon
is on your
Zapala. Simon, whose name will be pronounced in whatever way it's supposed to be pronounced when he shoots 100% from the free throw line, really fucked us good on that one.
I have a question for you. So, how do you feel about missed shots when there's a lane violation? So Cohen Carr, who I believe coming into the game was shooting like 48% from the line, missed one, but there was a lane violation.
He was distracted. Again. Michael, he was distracted. That's why they have the lane violation. We're not going to have any distractions. We're not going to have any of that lawlessness. This isn't Syria, Michael. Oh my God.
Just another thing. I don't know if either of you heard this or saw this after the game, but apparently something that's interesting to me, Jackson Kohler has set doubles in his sight as a personal goal that he's set for himself. And so apparently, in the first half he had 8 rebounds. and had played again in this game 4 assists in the Nebraska game. Played very unselfishly, but at the end of the game, he was begging Tom to let him back in the game to get his double-double.
To get another double, yeah.
He's because he's using Tillman as a bit of a comp.
Ooh.
That like, because Izzo told him, Tillman, like, you'll get to the league if you do doubles. Obviously, they're very different players, and Kohler needs to do some things to get himself to the league. But the fact that he has put rebounding as such a point of emphasis, that dude was on the floor and has been on the floor for balls in ways that, like, I have not seen that tenacity out of anyone in a long time. Like, he will not let it go, and it's been. I think you got to give credit where credit's due. Jackson Kohler is seemingly OKG. Like, he's got the hustle and the grit and the grime, and it's maybe it's a testament to that we all need to chill out for let kids grow up a little bit in front of our eyes.
Shut up. All right.
Yeah.
I do want to call out this. I think the Nebraska game was one of the best defensive games of the year. I know Nebraska helped missing some shots and having some errors, but the consistency has been on the offensive side of the board. I think, including Carolina, the games over the last 3 weeks have been very good on offense, like properly good on offense. And a lot of it is just, hey, look what happens when threes start to go through the hoop. I think that is a substantial portion of it, but it's also the flow. It's also guys, running the offense. It's Jeremy Fears being able to throw an oop from sitting on the floor up to Cohen Carr. So, like, it's Jace Richardson becoming more and more and more a part of this offense and a bigger part of the rotation, which
he averaged over a point a minute. A point a minute.
My man has got to be, like, the usage numbers for Jace Richardson are still not enough. We need him to be more actively participating in the game. And Frankie Fiddler, I think we haven't said his name yet. He's finding other ways than, like, coming in and just being a 3-point shooter. He's finding other ways to contribute. And I think we've got to give him some credit for finding a role on this team that isn't the role that he had last year.
I think that's exactly right. Like, you see him hunting shots less. Like, he went from being the dude at a program and then came in here and kind of did what he's used to doing, and then that wasn't working. And now you see him scaling back and doing a whole bunch of other shit for us, and it's great. Like, I think this team really likes each other. Basketball is fun.
Yeah. And Trey Holloman needs a shout as well. Trey Holloman's been playing really well, and that deserves acknowledgement. Plum, anything else about our friends over at the Breslin Centaur before we move on? We've got women's basketball and hockey as well.
Let's do it. Let's go talk about women's basketball, because these undefeated women are making some records, as I understand, in the program.
They are indeed. I mean, they beat up DePaul today. They're up to number 24 in the polls.
Best season start for them all
9-0, correct? Or are they 10-0 now?
Yeah, 10-0, right?
Yeah. So, very impressive. Number 25 here in the tempo free stats that I'm looking at. Jaden Simmons transferring from ASU. Breakout offensive game today against DePaul. So they're getting it from different players, it looks like, and they're really buying into this Robin Freilich program that as we're starting to enter conference play. So listen to Graham, what he said. He kind of put his finger right on it. Like, one of the hottest tickets in town, women's basketball. Be there.
Yeah, Susie Merchant had the previous record starts of 8-0 back in 2012 and then again in 2020. So gotta give her credit. The women seem to really be clicking. Who is this? Brian Calloway in the LSJ had some good interviews with some of the players who are just cannot stop singing Robin Fralick's praises. You get the sense that this is a strong, cohesive team who is going to make a very deep run this season, and that's exciting. And more to the point, and I know we'll get into it when we get to Graham's article with Alan Haller, but Alan spent a lot of time talking about women's basketball, and a lot of time praising not only the sport's evolution in terms of just an exciting game to watch, different than the men's basketball that we've come to kind of consider normative. I thought that was one of the more insightful things that he said, and I appreciated that, not just as the AD, but I go as a fan and I look forward to it because of what the atmosphere is. And so one assumes that some of this $1 million in revenue and scholarships and stuff is going to be headed their way. I think women's basketball quickly becoming one of the bigger, revenue, non-revenue, formerly non-revenue, now more revenue oriented sports. And I think Robin Fralick is going to have a lot to do with that. And so, on balance, making some of that investment, you want to continue to see the dividend. And where it isn't happening in men's football or just football, I guess, it can be happening here. So that's nice. Happy to see it.
And they've got a big, to that point, Plum, about women's basketball and its maturation and its gaining eyeballs. Iowa, program that kind of everyone's been keeping an eye on over the last few years. They are coming to Breslin Center next Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's a great opportunity to go out and support the team.
Yep. Here.
All right. And then, of course, Michigan State hockey splits against Wisconsin. Not ideal after achieving your number one ranking. You don't love that.
Yeah.
But, they both, I believe, were on the road, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They were in Kohl Center at Wisconsin. They got shut out in game one. That sucks. We don't like that. I do think it's worth giving them some credit, though, on the road for the Saturday game. Coming back from being down 0-2, you get shut out on Friday. You're down 0-2, and you force an overtime, and Isaac Howard scores, and you win in overtime. So that shows some mettle, exactly, I think, for the program. It gets tougher from here, though. They're about to go on the road and play number 4 Minnesota this week. So, when you have a program that goes from being just bathwater 3 years ago to now being number 1, I think you expect they're probably not going to hold on to number 1 the whole year. So I hope those guys had reasonable expectations for this. I hope that they're not too bummed out about dropping a game and going down in the standings. And I got that. I got that impression from Knights. I think I was listening to an interview he was doing before the game, and he was talking about how the Big Ten is tough. You're not going to win every game. You're just trying to focus on the team and get better. And you can, learn from losses and learn from overtime wins as well. So I don't know. Huge matchup against Minnesota this upcoming week, and then they get to take some time off and they get the GLI and that kind of stuff. But we'll get to see what this team is made out of this season, and we'll get to see it pretty quick.
Yep. Here.
Well, we are going to chat some of the Haller article, but before we do, we of course want to encourage you to check out Mama's Mercantile and Eatery at mamas.merc on Instagram. Look, we've said plenty about Mama's Mercantile. It's great food, a great location. Get yourself some $3 domestic beers if you are anything like me. Enjoy. But fantastic food, great brunch menu, and you can get 10% off of your bill if you mention Can't Read, Can't Write. They're on the Washtenaw County, Jackson County line, just off of I-94 at exit 153 Clear Lake Road. That's Mama's Mercantile and Eatery. Check them out. All right, let's head off Grand River, and I think the Graham Couch had a sit down with Alan Haller, and I think interestingly published it as a Q&A, which I really appreciated, actually, that instead of getting an article from Graham, or a column rather from Graham, that we had the opportunity to see what Alan Haller himself said about things. Because I think that's what we all needed right now. I don't know that as much as I appreciate Graham's thoughts, I didn't need Graham's thoughts. I needed Alan Haller's thoughts. And so let's start. I'll start with the positive. Plum, you called out women's basketball, and I thought it was the most economically forward-thinking thing that I saw from Alan Haller, which is that you are seeing increasingly that TV spots are going to women's basketball, that it is an increasingly consumed product, and that having a good basketball team pays. At worst, it's cost mitigating, right? And so I would say that of all the things that Alan Haller said, that was the smartest thing that I heard him say. And 100%. Then he said a bunch of other dumb shit. But
at the same time, you do have to give him credit for being willing to go on the record. Everyone should subscribe to the LSJ. You have to give him credit for
enter promo code can't write in, and you'll get 10% off of your LSJ subscription.
But anyway, Plum, I apologize. I jumped in there in your spot.
I don't think you did. I think that was a great point. And I don't really know how you want to tackle this article because there's a lot that we could go into. Maybe I'll just start at one point. And that was what I teed up earlier, which was his evasiveness and his non-answers. I want to preface what I'm going to share. I'm going to use a couple examples, but I want to preface it by saying I recognize that he has to non-answer some things. At the end of the day, he is a politician. That is what he is. Full stop, period, end of story. He's not a police officer anymore. He's an administrator, but at this point, he is a
lot of stakeholders.
He's got a ton.
And his staff, he's got the teams, he's got billionaires.
The more the stakeholders, and the more the stakeholder, the less actual work you're doing, the more it's just optic management. And that is just politics. That's his job. His job is politics. So just name that. I can hold that tension. But some of the more disappointing non-answers. So I think I've already given the one, which I thought was pretty stupid. The whole piece on like, we have to be, are we a top third program? We have to be.
We have to be.
Fuck you, guy. Don't know what the hell that is. Graham asked him at one point about, you're watching the end of Saturday's football game, end of the season, it's cold, Thanksgiving, but God, it's like an empty stadium. What are you thinking? And Alan says, well, for me, it's not necessarily an empty stadium. No. It is objectively an empty stadium, Alan. It is an objectively empty stadium. So sometimes it felt like he was playing a little bit with what objectively happened and trying to offer this sort of reframing. Well, it's not about, this answer was one of the worst. For me, it's not necessarily an empty stadium. I feel that we're in a better place, a year ago. Because I meet with Jonathan regularly, I'm around the team. I know some of the concerns that fans have, but I see the vision that's here, and I know what we're capable of doing. Alan, after this season, nothing is more tone deaf or, frankly, self-evidently wrong than that sentence. The vision doesn't matter if it can't be executed. So it's wonderful that you and the teams and Jonathan, everyone sees the vision. Graham's point to you was the stadium is empty because no one sees any vision. We don't care about vision. We're looking at results and they're not there. And so this sort of like, well, for me, it's not an empty stadium. It's what can happen. He says, our student athletes have been phenomenal. Again, self-evidently, no, they have not. They indeed have not been phenomenal, or we wouldn't be ending at 5-7. So it's like
it's not just the 5-7; it's the nature of those 7.
The nature of the 7. So it and the downward plane crashing into ground. So it's very, that for me was hard to read because when I read that, I worry that a broken clock is right twice a day. He's just lucky on women's basketball. To your point, Mike, is this brilliant tacticianship happening with investing in economics and where the money can come from? Or is he just like, got to do it because, the liberals think it's woke to support ladies basketball, Spartan ladies. So, it's hard for me to know because this, and I know this is just one of his many answers, but this one was really, and then he gave a very mealy-mouthed sort of apology for Aiden Childs, who then I 100% agree with what he said. You do? You don't care about the fans? Do you know what he said? Again, it's ignoring not just the context, it's full out ignoring the factual reality of it was an empty stadium. Okay. Aiden literally said he doesn't care about the fans. I don't know. So that was hard for me. I don't know if I'm the only one on that one, but that one was those were hard.
I was willing to look past. I think I was able to hold the politispeak, if you will, and look past some of that. I think my two larger concerns with Allen were one, that he said he was asked specifically about revenue sharing and the role of collectives after July 1st.
Yeah.
And so for those maybe who are listening who aren't aware of what we're talking about, on July 1st, in theory, the settlement between House v. NCAA goes into effect. And it'll lead to revenue sharing between student athletes and the universities. Most of this money, so it's I think we're talking in the ballpark of $22 million that'll be shared with student athletes. Most of that money will go to football players. And he
acknowledges that in this. I think this is an area where he deserves a lot of credit. I think we got more specifics from him here than we've ever seen before about not just how the university plans to allocate this money, but the thought that they put into how they're going to, and the justification for how they're going to allocate this money. And I think we should call that out.
Sure. But what's concerning is that he seemed unclear and weak on the role of collectives after the House settlement. And that is either being at best naive, but more likely just fucking wrong.
And this is consistent with the note that he sent out to the Spartan community, which basically communicated the same thing. Thank you for the collectives. We need you until July 1st of next year, in which case we got it, you guys, which is not in keeping with the House settlement. NIL is not going away.
Right. So the issue is, so you might be saying, dear listener or viewer, that there's $22 million being allocated to student athletes. Isn't that all good? That's really good for someone like Purdue, who by all accounts had maybe $400,000 in NIL for their football team. Because what that does is now Purdue is going to have a metric butt ton more money to give to football players that, say, someone in the ACC or MAC or a lot of these other programs that Purdue might be losing players out to. Now Purdue is going to be able to pay those players, and so Purdue is going to be able to raise their floor substantially in the type of player that they're able to recruit. That's a big deal.
Brett Bielema called out the same thing for Illinois.
Yeah, the problem is though that Michigan still has signed Bryce Underwood for $12.5 million or whatever. They're still going to continue to pay him that money, notwithstanding all of the money coming in from the House settlement. So, and imagine the SEC schools. So, yes, rising tides have raised all ships, but if you were on the crest of a wave, you're still on the crest of a wave. And so the collectives are still absolutely important until there is a rule that says otherwise. And at this point in time, there is no indication that if the free market says that a student athlete can garner X number of dollars, then they shouldn't be able to garner that amount of dollars.
Yep.
So if Aiden Childs is getting paid $5 million a year, which he's not, but like let's just say he is, he'll get his share of the house distribution, but then he'll also still be paid $5 million by the collective. That's not disappearing. So the fact that Alan Haller has missed that point is dumb. At truly, like we're talking best case scenario, it's just dumb, and maybe you can educate him up. The other problem that I have, and then Kevin, I will hand it over to you, is that subsequent to that, and this ties into our top third conversation and ties into what I was just talking about, which is that his answer to the question about everyday fans participating in NIL was simultaneously, no, we're good, we got the money, but we're not mad if you contribute.
Yeah, but we always need more money. We always need more money.
Alan, the answer is we need more money. Like this is like, how do you continue to fuck this up so bad? Like at every turn, the collective, the department, Darian, Haller, like you all have just shat the bed at every turn. So you should be saying, hey, look, we have a great donor base that has allowed us to secure this class, but you know what? We need more money for the transfer portal. We need more money for next year's roster. Like, you should be constantly asking people for money. Like, Alan, do you want to build a new building? What do? You ask people for money. It's not different for the rosters. So Haller just, I'm deeply concerned that he does not fundamentally understand the moment he's in. You talked about him being a politician, Plum. He's a fucking fundraiser, and he's not any good at it.
Well, I think this is worth getting back to, Plum, what you said about him being a politician, holding things in tension. In his answer about the regular fan contributing to NIL, he talks, I mean, this is a great example of why it's beneficial to hear directly from him. Like, he talks out of both sides of his mouth, talking about transparency, and the fans want this and the donors want that, and it's silence, not secrecy. Like, it really came across how uncomfortable this question made him, because there's a massive tension here. The billionaires want to just do this, and then they want us to just throw in with no additional level of oversight, no responsibility to tell us how the funds are spent. Just give us money. We know how to spend it. We're rich. And if they're putting up, it's got to be top third NIL money in the conference, then Allen has to keep those billionaires happy. But at the same time, he's talking here to the unwashed masses in the LSJ, and he's got to say something, for them there. So it goes to show here, I'm with you, Jonesy, on how poorly our programs have managed this outreach to the normal fan, but then also represents, Plum, as you said, the tension of managing the billionaires and the people that are actually putting up the meaningful money, while at the same time communicating out to the rest of us. Because Greg Williams does not particularly care what we think, does not have an interest in us being involved. The ideal state for Greg Williams is we all give him $5,000 and shut up and go away, and he gets to just do whatever he wants with it, and we never ask questions, and we don't require anything of him. And Alan Haller wants Greg Williams to not go away and continue doing what he's doing. So, I mean, he's playing that game right now, and you can tell it comes off the page how uncomfortable the situation is at the moment.
Can we also mention what was not mentioned in the article? There are two collectives.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was not mentioned. The one that funds a lot of the non-revenues, by the way.
And in the community letter, Alan Haller referenced Steve St. Andre and SD Pharrell, which didn't go great.
But also did not mention the other NIL collective that is active. Yeah. And so,
this is I'm going to just say it. This is after reading this article, this is a man who can no longer lead the athletics program.
But I don't think. No. I think the issue here isn't actually Alan Haller. The reason he doesn't mention that has to do with our billionaires. And so I'm Greg. I know you would never use this language on the podcast, but you mentioned something to the effect of it'd be nice if our billionaires stopped trying to measure their dicks through politics, but instead through the wads of cash that they put on the table.
Right.
And that is, it would be just great if they just did this machismo through, I'm going to give more money than you, but instead they do this other, like, I'm going to make, not that Alan Haller's poor, but in comparison, I'm going to make poor people contort themselves into weird shapes to try and appease me, which is exactly what Spartan Nation NIL is doing, seemingly into the This Is Sparta NIL collective, which again supports things like women's gymnastics and women's soccer, a lot of our other Olympic sports, right? So
and This Is Sparta and their what's the word?
Is that the one that has the podcast that has Jason Strayhorn on it? Is that the
one? I was going to say, and their
Benedict
political word for it. Yeah. It's not like they're harmless in all of this.
No.
It's just, this is a system where not all the parties are rowing in the same direction. And the results are what the results are.
And it is the university's job to make them row in the same direction. It is. And whether or not they collude or they do it behind the scenes, however else, it is absolutely the athletic director's one job to get the boats rowing. That's his only job. The only job. If he can't do it, or she, if we had a woman that was athletic director, nobody will. Because only one person is sitting on top of the enterprise looking at it and knowing what the needs are. So, Kevin, one of the things you said a moment ago was LSJ readers, the unwashed masses, and that maybe this is Alan least common denominatoring, as simple as he can. I've read I've read a lot of what Graham writes. I read what Graham writes at least on a weekly basis. I know that Graham isn't filtering what Alan said through some fourth grade reading level so that his readers can understand it. I know that's not happening. So Alan Haller is intentionally using language here that belies his ineptitude, because there's a lot of things we in fact do know. Jones, you pointed some of them out about what will happen to NIL when the House settlement goes into effect. So we should have heard some of those things. He didn't have to go into details. He could have said, we actually know a lot of what NIL is going to look like. There are a couple things legally that we're not fully sure how that's going to plan out. But what we do know is this is going to be a need from now until eternity. And here are the various ways that your dollars can go to work. And you can say that without pissing on anybody or pissing anybody off, or billionaires, whomever. We don't get that answer. We don't get any indication from Alan Haller that he understands how it works. And again, I'm going to go back to my point. He's not even speaking. It's one thing to acknowledge that, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to harp on this. It's one thing to acknowledge the stands were empty and to say, if folks could see the vision that I see from getting to talk to him every single week or every day or however often he talks to Jonathan Smith, I believe in his system and that's where we're going. And I know that's where we're going to get there. But instead, his framing is all wrong. And it's my job as the reader, or your job as the listener, to apply your hermeneutic to what he said to try to get him out of his own problem. That's not just ineffective communication. I think that belies that he doesn't really know what the fuck is going on. And so when Graham's asking him, you're 8 months away from your contract being up, and Alan Haller launches into a diatribe of mine, this is my favorite job I've ever had, and I'm just so happy to wake up and go to school every single day. I want to work for... And now that Kevin, on a first fucking name basis with the president of the university, very déclassé, now that Kevin's here, and I think the board is who we need the board to finally be, like, oh, watch out, you're going real fucking forward over the skis here, my guy. Slow down. So I'm nervous, because if those things are true, if you're on a first name basis with your boss and his bosses, and very closely treading on the line of impugning, which, by the way, they're completely right to be impugned, but I don't work for them. I'm very nervous that, in fact, they've given him whatever sort of guarantees or blank checks he needs, and we're going to be in trouble with Alan Haller, boys. You can mark my words on that one. I am very low on Mr. Haller after this article. He's done very little to reassure or redeem me. And Kevin, I'm more upset that you haven't pointed out that when asked about the in-stadium experience, he completely failed to take up any of your suggestions.
Oh, come on, Alan!
What I've learned here is that at work, Alex expects people to call him Mr. Plum, is what I've learned in this particular moment. And for that, I say you have a toxic workplace.
We got one more to play us out, Jonesy. I don't know how much else you want to talk about this, but I've got one more
and then
to call out.
And then I got a not a sponsor, so go ahead.
We've got a body of work here on the podcast, and we've seen college football change substantially in the time that we've been doing this. And one thing that we've been talking about since day one, and I think is I wasn't paying direct attention to the college football playoff selection show today, but I believe as I was passing through the room and it was on, they were even discussing it openly on that program, that the train is barreling down the tracks. It's picking up NIL. It's picking up revenue sharing. And ultimately, where this ends up is the end of the charade of amateurism and collective bargaining and employment with the student athletes, the football players and the basketball players at least the Big Ten and the SEC. And Graham asked Alan this question, and he gave an answer. And Plum, I think this is a little bit to your point. He gave an answer that is very like, that won't happen. We're not interested in that. Which sounds a lot like when Luana K. Simon said back in the day, you know, we'll do a college football playoff over my dead body or something like that. Or we'll pay the players over my dead. You'll need a new president if you're going to start paying the players. And it's like, well, we've had like 5 new presidents since then. So this is the direction that the sport is going. No one on this podcast, I think, loves the idea particularly. It's so divorced from our experience with college football back when, you know, we experienced it before the Big Ten Network even existed for a moment there. But we've got an athletic director who I think we do, Plum, you're right, need to replace when we get to this collective bargaining step, because he's not prepared for it. He's not willing to really, you know, consider that possibility. And this was the part of the article that I think was most concerning about the program in the long run. But that's for another day. That's some time off. But it is, I think, evident where all of this is heading.
Yeah, and I guess I'm willing to. I go back to Plum. I think you expertly called it out at the beginning. I'm willing to entertain the possibility that Alan Haller is maybe very good at his job in the sense that he is a politician. And so if he's able to adapt to the moment when the moment hits, all is forgiven. But it seems to me that right now you actually are better benefited from being a leading voice, and we're not getting that. And so if he navigates it, great. I'm open to that possibility. But there were a lot of swings and misses on this one. So, yep. Alan?
But again, I think we got to call out. Good for him for sitting down and taking the questions.
Fine.
Good for him.
Very good.
For giving us the answers. Some of them were good. We do need to call that out. And I appreciate transparency for once from the athletic department.
I'd love to have him on the show. Get him 8 beers deep, and then let's have some real talk. So we're gonna get to listener questions, but before we do, of course, this episode is not brought to you by Spartan Nation NIL. You can Google us, but you won't be able to find us. So you can go to SpartanNationNIL.com. Oh, that's not it either. Or you can scan the QR code at the Breslin Center. Oh, it's not there. Go to our Twitter page. We haven't tweeted since March. Spartan Nation NIL. That's SpartyNIL.com if you want to be like Greg and contribute. But seriously, you guys suck worse than Alan Haller. Let's do some listener questions. Shall we?
Well done, you.
All right, up first, listener Mike Jones. How funny will it be to see James Franklin go all James Franklin and not make the semifinals? We did not talk about this. Also, I meant to bring up, did either of you see Timothée Chalamet on game day?
Yeah, he paid someone to tell him a lot of college football stuff.
I don't care if he did or not. He was impressive as hell. So,
did you know he's a good actor, man? Timothée, the boy.
He apparently, I saw, he like hung outside of Madison Square Garden to get Amari Stoudemire's autograph as like a kid. He might actually be like a sports freak. If you told me that he was super into it, but Plum, if you've not seen this, you need to see him on game day. It is impressive. And he went he called most of them. He called most of them against the wisdom of the bulk of the panel. So
yeah.
Anyway, Greg, you have some thoughts on James Franklin not making the semifinals.
Well, first off, James Franklin going to James Franklin. You can rely on that. When I was talking about the different classes, I know that he just played in the Big Ten championship game, which how much of that game did you guys watch last night? It was on at Crunchies. I was enjoying it. It was a great game. But there's been a lot of talk today about reseeding and about how gnarly it is that Oregon's probably going to play Ohio State or Tennessee. Like, what about Penn State that doesn't get a bye? What about the conference championship losers that still get at-large bids? Like, that's gnarly. That they got to go play SMU and then play Boise after that. Like, that's a rough trip to the college football championship game.
Okay, but if you had told me what literally a year ago that SMU and Boise were your two teams as Penn State, so you got a group of five, and you got a formerly group of five.
Yeah, fair.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, I mean, this will all play out, but the conventional wisdom is that the ACC is, or I'm sorry, the ACC is a joke of a football conference, and it was not when Clemson was good, and Clemson beat SMU.
So for the purposes of my argument, let's not use Penn State. Let's use Texas. Texas loses the SEC championship game, and now they've got to go play Clemson, and then they've got to go play Arizona State, a Sam Leavitt-led team. It says right there on the marquee. That is brutal for a Texas team that has played really well, was number one at times this year. Like, that sucks, man. And I get the argument too of like, you want to win a national championship, you better go win. But it's a real twist of the knife that not only did you lose your conference championship game, but you're at a pretty significant disadvantage in playing yet another game before you get back to the same level of competition of, in all likelihood, your conference championship game.
Well, I also, you know, what's going to be really interesting is about Texas's two games there. They are playing two teams that have not, one that has fully not embraced the transfer portal, and I'm not sure where they are on the collective standpoint, but like Dabo certainly deprioritized that in his messaging, and then ASU, who's wildly underfunded in the collective market, so, and
is the lowest rated automatic like first round bye team.
So I guess I'm on the ballot here is modern day college football versus the old way of doing things. So you have, on the one hand, a team that has not embraced the transfer portal at all in Clemson, and then you have another team that has barely compensated its players. So I'm also pointing to that as a bit of a hole poke on your argument. But like this, I'm looking forward to these storylines playing out.
Speaking of storylines, guys, are you prepared to root for Notre Dame to win at home in South Bend against our arch rivals?
Notre Dame should not be in the playoffs. You can't lose to Northern Illinois University
and still be in the playoff.
That is truly, that is the re-electing Donald Trump equivalency of like how soon we forget. Like truly, how quickly did we forget? Holy shit!
I mean, forks down against Notre Dame.
No, you can't be a Spartan and root for Notre Dame.
You can't be a Spartan and root for Indiana, Michael Jones.
I'm rooting for a tornado.
Next
up from Mike Jones. What's the most impressive thing you've accomplished while unexpectedly sitting on your ass, Alex?
I probably this podcast. Is that?
I was going to say the same thing.
Can I do that? Can I say that? Is that different?
Yeah, it's fair.
I've had some
next
pretty
up,
good shits before.
Full Garage. I think first time.
Hey, FG.
Greg, Zapala is already the best 7-footer ever to play for Izzo, correct? Best in MSU history?
We've had a lot of 6'11 is proper 7-footers. There haven't been a ton of them, and they have been quite bad. So by that metric, no, Bingham was a 6'11ist.
His arms were just so long.
The last 7-footer I can think of is dude that turned out to be a professional Magic the Gathering player. Hold on, I'm searching for it. This is really going to bother me. What's his name? Whatever. It's from way back in the day. Not been a lot of 7-footers. None of them have been spectacular. I'm on board with this. Full Garage. Well done. Next up from the Key Ski, MSU is aggressively asking for donations to pay for a video board and luxury boxes. Read the room. That team sucked. Not really a question. It's a statement. But do you guys have any comment on that? Technically, I think they're not asking for donations for video board and luxury boxes. I think those things pay for themselves. They're going to be asking for donations for the East Side expansion and the bricking of the stadium, if that floats your boat.
I mean, that will be nice that it's like aesthetically symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is a bit odd that one side is super nice and the other side is. You can see the lines on the pavement from where the gas pumps used to be.
Next up from Key Ski, who's your favorite Spartan b-ball player ever and this year? Plum.
We all know the answer to that. It's Drew Neitzel. Michael Jones, who is it for you?
It's Cassius.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be not Cassius for a while.
What about this year, you two?
Oh,
you lot.
I'm coming around on Jackson Kohler.
Ooh.
Wow.
But for the nonce, it's Jace Richardson.
Yeah, I was gonna go Jace, I think. Yeah.
And finally, from the Keith Ski, what'd you guys get each other for Christmas? Keith Ski, it is December 8th at time of recording. You think I've done any Christmas shopping?
Anything, even for my loved ones.
And to be clear, I've had a Christmas gift planned for these two jabronis for 2 years now and have not gotten it either year. So odds that it's this year, slim to none.
Very, very unlikely.
Next up from Thomas Zambiasi, is Izzo secretly glad that Jays had to sit out a game? Seemed like it unlocked something in the rest of the roster. Ooh.
I don't know that he's happy. He might be happy of the byproduct, but I don't think he was happy about it at the time. I also don't know that that'd be more like, I think it's a better question if Tyson Walker had to miss a game and then this happened. Jace just isn't getting enough usage, right? To
That's a good point. Yeah. Izzo isn't, it's not like this team hinges on Jace right now, the way that it's constructed.
He's just really good.
It should be, but it's not. I was texting with our D'Antonio soundboard, official D'Antonio soundboard maker. That's a deep cut for the Psycho fans that have been with us from the beginning, who pointed out, is there and this is his joke, so I'm attributing it. Is there a hit out on Jace Richardson? Like, why are all of these different teams concussing him and bodying him and pushing him out of bounds? Like, why? What is this violence towards Jace Richardson?
Well, it is something to keep an eye on because normally freshmen hit a wall because of the physicality of the Big Ten schedule. Like, it'll be interesting to see where Jace is come mid-January, late January. Does he plateau? I don't know.
Let's hope not. Next up from Thomas, what's
I
your
got this one.
conditions?
This one's for you, Greg. What's your ideal conditions for watching basketball? Noon tip with approximately 45 degrees and sun today with nothing else to do was as good as it gets outside of being in the Brez, in my opinion, says Thomas.
Yes, that's fine. The beauty of basketball is that it's indoors, so I'm down for it under any conditions. Though I do like a cozy road game, where there's like a light snow coming down outside. You got a little blanket, and you got basketball on the TV. That's a good time as well. We like that. We appreciate that.
Thomas also adds, not a question, but appreciate the trademark correct opinions on the pod last week with regard to the Spartan marching band / brass versus the DJ. The Big Ten must answer for shortening pregame and halftime.
I didn't even realize that they're shortening.
Why would they shorten them? They've expanded everything else.
Everything else gets longer, but pregame and halftime gets shorter. Perfect. Great. John McWhat asks, is watching basketball fun again?
I think so.
Yeah. Asked and answered. And also, John asks, what do you need to see in this year's transfer portal to feel okay about MSU football next season? Plum.
Another 99% free throw shooting, probably.
I think this.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong question. Yeah,
benefits the football team.
No. We got there. I was looking at the wrong question. 40 guys all on the offensive line. I don't know what. I'm unable to even know how many. It's just offensive. It's just offensive line talent. I guess now we need probably at least 2 or 3 wide receivers. Yeah, 4 or 5. I don't know. So
they're all gone.
Offense, but offensive line really is the.
Let us all remember the lessons learned. Giving Matt Sheehan a hard time about talking up the transfers. It's the transfers in particular are you have got to prove it to me situation. So I don't even know, John, how to begin to answer this question other than warm bodies at this point.
Yeah, I guess as on the line, to Plum's point, on the line, like older linemen would be like a strong indication of like with starts, a lot of starts, so that assumes they were at least best on their team if they were getting the starts and they're older. So
next up from Tyler Jabara, MSU basketball is saving my life. Am I getting my hopes too high? What's the ceiling for this team?
I think Big Ten championships on the table at this point in time.
Honestly,
they've not proven that they're not capable of that.
It's true. Like, you're right. Like, there is no runaway team. At least it appears that way right now in the Big Ten. Illinois looks good. UCLA looks good. Maryland looks good. Purdue has not turned out to be the runaway team that they expected to be, though. Again, they're really good on offense this year, which is very anti-Purdue. Like, it's a possibility, dude.
You're probably a 2 seed if you're the Big Ten champion, right?
Yeah, but we've seen 2-seeded teams. This is not a 2 seed program. This team is not a 2-seed team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they don't win the Big Ten. I don't know. Like in my mind, they're a 4-seed probably, but like, are you telling me that if you win the Big Ten, that there are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's going to be 12 teams ahead of you in the seeding?
The thing I keep coming back to is our very flat talent curve, which benefited us against Nebraska because you can just go with them in waves. But like, this team lacks guys that will take over games and win. Jace Richardson is the closest to that we have right now. Frankie Fiddler did not turn out to be that so far. Jaden Akins, I don't think is quite having the senior season we would have loved to have seen so far, but like, it's still good. And I think that lack of high end play is going to put a ceiling on this team, and that ceiling is going to be
counterpoint, Kevin. Like, if they shot 33% from behind the arc in either the Memphis or Kansas games, they would have won those games.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Next up from Karen, let's laugh at the people who wanted Tom Izzo gone.
I don't think we ever said that here. I
mean, I definitely came close, at least in some of the portal talk with no 5 and really steering down the barrel of what that could look like. But happy to admit I was wrong. So
next up, Jordan Villarreal. Sorry, Jordan. You need to give us a pronunciation. After watching Sam Levitt take ASU to the playoffs, is he the one that got away? I don't think he was. We just lost a year of Sam.
Yeah,
I don't think he was staying.
Yeah, he pretty clearly was ready to go. But still,
don't blame him either.
Yeah, that's part of it. If you could trade Aiden Giles for Sam Levitt straight up, is there anyone that would not take that trade though?
No. I mean, Sam has the benefit of operating in year 2 of a program versus year 1 of a program. But so Giles can have one more year, but Sam has done quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up from Jordan, I don't want to get my hopes up, but the bench points from this basketball team make the team so fun to watch. Are we back?
That's something we've been saying though, right? Our team's starters are never very good. And so we just start them so we can figure out what rotation not to play.
They've been doing better, but yeah, sometimes you look around and you're like, well, what would you change? And why would you change it? And if you're getting that much production off of the bench, you do kind of have to ask yourself, like, why change that?
Yeah.
Right. Next up from Jordan, my partner wants a dog. Do I just cave and get him one? If so, what kind? Just so much work and then travel is harder. To be clear, I do love dogs. I'm just realist about the work. Maybe I should make it contingent on MSU getting a natty in basketball. Again, I'm a realist. It could happen. To the 2 dog owners on the cast, what say you?
I would say it is work. It's helpful to have a relative or very close friends nearby who can sub in when you're sick or house repair projects or just need the weekend or you got a trip. So doing it by yourselves can be a lot. Got to admit it. It is and would not be functional otherwise. But a lot of upside. Feels great having a dog that kind of just lay on your lap.
Oh, I thought you were saying when you get to euthanize.
Okay.
Wow.
You talk about kicking Yali all the time, and I'm the one who's...
Yeah, you're the monster. You're the monster there.
Yeah,
I will say, Jordan, we just got a dog. We know people on the podcast, listeners know that. We had dogs growing up. This is the first dog we've had ourselves. And I think we would both cop that we were a bit naive. We underestimated how impactful and how much work it would be. We got a rescue. There's been dog classes. There's been lots of stuff that's happened. And it is definitely true that it's impacted us a little bit. Not overwhelmingly, and things are getting better. It's manageable, but like, it's work, man. It's work and it's money. And best of luck to you. It is fun at times, but it'll impact you. There's no doubt about that. Next up from Blow, Jonesy, since you were left out on the last one. Does men's or women's shooty hoops have a higher ceiling? Ooh, this is a good question.
That's a very good question. The women's schedule has not. I know they went down to the tournament and did do winning, but their schedule has not been quite as hard as the men's. So without seeing more, I'm going to have to pick the men's because, as I just said to Greg, if they had just shot a little bit better, truly not substantially, but a little bit better from behind the arc, they would have won. They'd be undefeated right now, and we'd be feeling way different. We'd be high on our own supply right now. This team was undefeated.
Jordan, we'd be telling Jordan, count on getting a dog because this team's definitely winning the Natty. That's what
we would be unhinged. Look, I'm not out on Robin Freilich's squad. Like they're a lot of fun and they're great. I just need to see a little bit more. And Big Ten play is going to be a gauntlet. Next up from Bilo, what will happen to Izzo's typical frustrated edge if we keep winning games in this fashion? Alex, how would you harness that rage?
I don't know. Call timeouts, more of them.
I've seen
he just starts calling
just only timeouts.
First half timeouts.
Life finds a way, Bilo. Life finds a way. And finally, what couldn't Carr jump over, guys, for the dais?
You
know what Cohen Carr couldn't jump over?
I don't know. Everything.
The moon.
My abounding disappointment in Mike Jones for making that tasteless joke about euthanizing Yali.
Dogs.
Like,
thank you. That's
truly awful.
Distracting and very, very, very upsetting.
I think we were just caught off guard by it, right, Plum? Like,
and now did you say should be done to Malik Hall last year?
I will not be, nor will I have the listeners of this pod.
Search up what. Google Alex Plum, Malik Hall.
Dragged through some nefarious effort to try to take the attention away from this very dark and evil comment you just made.
Humane.
Do you see how he tries to deflect as well and put it back on you? Like, it's very concerning. Next up from Jason Fry to Plum, because I don't have anything for Mike Jones right now. How unhinged is Plum since MSU was 22 of 23, a putrid 95.7% from the free throw line versus Nebraska? Please rate it on a scale from John L. Smith slapping himself to assassinating a CEO.
Oh, no. Well, and we could add now killing a dog. I don't know. I probably am somewhere. I'm trending closer to John L. Smith slapping his face. Because 95.7 is good, but it's not great. And it's close to excellent, but it's still not there. So we're going to get to work on Zapala this week involving toaster ovens and whatever other pluggable, throwable electronics exist until these guys get it together. But great question, and we're happy to see positive trends. Next up, Cedar Village Bagel for Michael Jones. Pre-show prep. Gift ideas for Spartans in your life. Under $10 option, $10 to $50 option, over $50 option.
under 10 option, Plum, you will recall the Bev key.
I love that Bev key.
Yeah, so there's a circular keychain.
Yep.
That's a bottle opener and cap twister for you. And it's even got a little slot in it for getting a tab open on a can. It is excellent. You can find it at the Spartan Bookstore. For sure, my go-to on a under 10. I'm not going to endorse any other Spartan gift ideas because those should all be advertisers on this podcast. So
here.
Well,
but the Bev key, excellent stocking stuffer. Next up, Spartan 18770. Is it safe to believe that this is in this ISO team, or should I wait until February? Correct.
I think let yourself believe a little bit, Spartan 18770. We're going to see this thing trend in the right direction. And I was talking about this in the stands with our social media coordinator. We're starting to see...
She's been demoted to coordinator from manager.
Yeah, manager. Pardon me, not coordinator. Manager, social media manager. Like, we're starting to see better rotations. We're starting to see the threes drop. We're starting to see hustle from this team that I think is replicable both at home and on the road. I think make yourself vulnerable, Spartan 18770. Open yourself up a little bit. Do you guys disagree?
No, not at all. Love that.
I'm excited. I feel about this team the same way I feel about Jason Richardson going up for a shot. I don't know that they're going to win all of them, but I believe they're going to. Like Jason Richardson, every time he goes to the rack, I believe that shot's going in.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in time, I'm starting to really believe
nice.
this team.
Yep, that feels really nice.
Jonesy, I don't know what our editorial standards are on this next question, so I'm going to put it to you. Is it true that Graham Couch tried to recruit AJ Hoggard to Michigan last year? This is obviously a reference to something in the fan ether.
So rumors are abound. Yeah, we're going to do it. Because you know what? I don't think a rumor like this starts unless there's something to it. So the rumor is that Jason Strayhorn, color commentator on Spartan Radio,
and host of a rival podcast that we
now we name
have taken shots at once or twice.
Yeah, has been the go-between. We've gone after him before for his son. Caden Strayhorn committing to and presumably signing with the University of Michigan. And that I believe I called him a bad dad. I stand by that. But that Jason Strayhorn was an attempted go-between between Nick Marsh and the University of Michigan, trying to convince Nick Marsh to enter the transfer portal. It's a wild thing for someone to make up whole cloth. And I've heard enough of people who are connected that seem to be pissed at Strayhorn that would indicate there's some modicum of truth to it. So, listen, Jason, you're a bad dad. That's not the worst thing I could say about you. You're a worse Spartan. Get the fuck out. Next up, Spartan 18770, a delightful, mischievous temptress that all baby boomers and Gen X should try to forget this past football season. Picturing a yellow spot Irish whiskey 12-year. Hey, Spartan 18770, I don't know what generation you think we are, but you're going to need to invite some others to the table.
Like us.
And you could do that by sending it to us.
And yellow spot will set you back if you pick it up at the old Total Wine. So,
noted.
Very nice.
Same more, because I am actually now, it's a beautiful bottle.
Yeah, 120 is what I'm seeing here.
My
Total Wine.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Limited quality as well.
Okay.
150 now. Clicking into it, it was different. It was in Google Shopping, it was 120. Clicking into it now, it's 150. Maybe they applied some kind of.
I might have to check this out.
It's great.
Maybe you know what? This is what you guys can get me for my Christmas present.
Yes, that's
much
for
less than that.
Cedar Village Bagel. That's for 50+ option, I guess. Irish yellow spot Irish whiskey. Next up from Just Sip. It appears this men's hoops team doesn't have she agrees with me, the one guy to take over a game. But with this team's depth, does it really matter? Or do we need one guy to ultimately have a successful season and a deep run? What do you guys think?
I don't know that we need it this year. I think a lot of teams are going to have their one guy, and we're not, and that's okay. And that feels right. And so I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the team seems unselfish enough and that they like each other enough that the thing about having a one guy is usually it comes down to like you're super behind or there's like a one possession and you need a bucket, right? Mm-hmm. I think this team will be like, who's the best guy for that matchup? And I feel pretty confident in that. So great question, Jess. Next up, Beppe Plum, drunk teachers at conventions. They get tipsy and start horsting anyone they can, then go home to their schmuck husband. Oh, my God. And trick him into thinking their little convention swag is his. I'm glad my wife does not go to conventions. Now you know.
Now we do know.
Wow. Delightful.
Next up, rant of the week, Kroger. Don't pretend I am saving $47.32 on my groceries. I spent 20 minutes adding the digital coupons because you raised the prices by $47.32 to make me think I got a deal. Also pooping at work. Rather inconvenient. I don't suggest it. Jesus Christ, man.
The constitutional on the clock, that goes against everything that I've been told in my working career. But I'll take it from you, Beppe Plum.
Well, we work in tech, so we don't really need to worry about these things.
That's fair. Yeah. Next up, from Mama Leaf, did you know that Mama's Mercantile and Eatery has a couple of days left in their wonderful work fundraising event for Mott Children's Hospital, and that you can help from your armchair quarterback position? We didn't get the copy on that, Jonesy, did we? We could have included that in the
didn't, but you can see a Alex Plum order on their website, which is truly still on their website.
No, wait, I have to do this. This is great.
But you can go to, if you'd like to contribute to Mott Children's Hospital, you can go to SpartyNIL.com and put in a contribution.
Hold on a second. What? Why are we contributing to Mott Children's Hospital, who has more money than God, when there is another clinic that serves children and young people that does not have more money than God? Petra, fuck. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up.
Look, now you're fighting with Mama's. Now you're fighting with Mama Maple Leaf, as well as Mama's Mercantile and Eatery.
Everyone's getting fought with. Any mama, come for me, except for you, Beth. Didn't hear from you this week.
We didn't hear from Beth this week.
Always a safe mama in my book. Last up from Mama Leaf. MSU hockey salvages this.
You can contribute to Mama's Mercantile and Eatery's fundraiser on their website through events
if you can find it. All right, last up from Leaf. MSU hockey salvages the split this weekend in Madison, and I'm wondering if you know of anyone to talk to about the high-functioning status of this team, because, well, it is a high-functioning MSU sport, even though we know, quote, football always leads, end quote.
Mama Leaf, you should have led with this question. Next up, Mr. Neurotic Pants.
Great. Really
did Tom Izzo really yell, "Listen the fuck to me" at Kohler while he was on the floor? I really hope my ears weren't betraying me.
I didn't get that in the upper decks. I was up with the people, the unwashed, the LSJ readers in the upper deck, so I missed this. Did it come through on the broadcast?
It didn't. Also, why doesn't the LSJ advertise with us? Next up, Mr. Neurotic Pants. Can MSU athletes like hypothetically an overpaid quarterback who threw passes to Kalamazoo hire personal football coaches and trainers in the off season, or would that be a violation? This is pretty normal, right?
Yeah,
I think this is a very
so far
standard
from
thing.
being a violation, it's exactly what will happen. Yeah.
They go back to their trainers back home that got them to them. Got them to
And
the
they
place
go
that
to
they're at now.
camps. They do stuff. Yeah, there's a flurry of summer activity that happens.
Last from Mr. Neurotic Pants, are the Wolverines dog feces eating sneak thieves or merely sewer dwelling plunderers who piss on the floor and don't mop up? Also, could we free associate a list right now of all the altercations and conflicts they've had with other teams in recent memories? I think Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State. I know they complained about Purdue's facilities. I believe there was an issue with Rutgers.
This is just football. We're not even talking about basketball. When Mark Turgeon shows up, I get so mad. I get so mad at Mark Turgeon. Oh,
it's been like 9 months.
In Wisconsin, when he literally slapped a dude.
Love it.
They are the worst. They are truly the worst, and I wish the worst for them. And finally, from the Upper Deck Jerk Guy, will Kohler get a triple-double this year? Great question, because he's throwing dimes, you guys. We talked about that earlier. It doesn't seem impossible.
It doesn't seem impossible. It does seem a bit unlikely. Also, can we circle back real quick? They're playing 9-3 Alabama. Michigan
in a bowl game. I didn't look at what their bowl game was. I could care less.
They're 7-5 Michigan playing 9-3 Alabama, or are they 8-4?
No, 9-3, 3-loss Bama.
No. I'm sorry. Is Michigan 8-4 or 7-5?
I don't know. I didn't. I couldn't care less.
All right. Next up, does Jace go pro after this year? From Upper Deck Jerk Guy. I think this is a real question.
I know that he's starting to get some. He's starting to get some heat on the pro boards, on the mock drafts. I do worry that his size and his game is not quite there yet for a pro career. The athleticism, maybe the physicality, not fully there yet. He's also, his volume of 3-point shooting is not going to impress NBA teams. So I think this is a doubt situation. But as the dean of MSU related media, Jack Epling, always says, and I think there's truth to it, guys are always looking for a reason to stay or a reason to go. And if he wants to go, maybe he'll find that reason. God knows his family doesn't need the money. So, yeah.
Well, irrespective of the money, his dad probably also helps from the perspective of, no, you should stay one more year.
Yeah.
Remember, you don't need to go right now.
His dad played 2 years. So,
yeah. Last up, Upper Deck Jerk Guy, when will we say, okay, Booker has it rolling, and why isn't it now, considering he's scored in double digits over the last 3 games? I have a thought, if I might interject. It's because he got manhandled by a shitty Minnesota team. Like, I know he scoring points isn't the entirety of basketball. He also needs to be accountable for defending and rebounding. And he got out-hustled. Straight up out-hustled. So, love Booker scoring, but he's a dude that we thought would leave this year. And he's not close to being able to leave. Unless he wants to go be buried in the G League.
It was pretty interesting that he was still on the floor at the end of the game. He was part of that end of game human victory cigar rotation. I guarantee you that's not where he expected to be when he was coming into MSU.
It's sort of it's how you talked about Aiden Childs. Like, why were we pulling him? He needed more reps. That's what Booker's getting right now, is that you need more reps.
Yep.
Well. Okay.
Well,
look at that,
gentlemen. This has been a good one.
Solid.
But Yali, who was physically threatened, acts of violence
multiple times. Several times.
I just said what her owner will ultimately do to her, and it's fine.
Wow.
Are you going to say that her demise is going to come a different way? I have some
I
questions.
thought
I'm not
maybe
answering
she's
that question.
immortal.
I don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Until next week, go green.
Go white.
Yeah, I guess go white. I'm not thrilled about this.